Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the preview for the 2021 French Grand Prix. Are you excited? I'm sure you are, really. It is, of course, the first race of the first triple header of the season. Yes, racing galore over the next few weeks. Now, I know Paul Ricard has produced some very, let's be generous and say, average racing over the last few years. But I've got a good feeling about this one. The field is so much closer this year than it was back in 2019. We have an actual title fight on our hands. And so I reckon we could end up seeing a pretty decent Grand Prix this weekend. Fingers crossed. On the subject of 2019, though, there's not really too much to say about F1's last visit to the track. The two Mercedes led off the line and, well, never really looked back for most of the race. Sergio Perez was handed a time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage after running well wide on the opening lap, gaining positions. On lap 5, George Russell attempted to move around the outside of his teammate at turn 11, but it didn't quite pay off and he stayed behind at that stage. Other than that, we saw a few DRS passes, a good scrap between the two Toro Rossos to be fair, and that was about it apart from pit stops and the usual stuff until about lap 53, when Daniel Ricciardo went for a move around the outside of Lando Norris at turn 8, went in too deep leaving the track which allowed Norris back past, but they nearly touched and the McLaren trying to avoid it went wide, allowing the Aussie back through and Kimi Raikkonen as well. Then, Ricardo went to pass the Finn and left the track with all four wheels over the line on the run to turn 10 and was handed 2 5-second penalties for his troubles. But at the front, Lewis Hamilton took the win comfortably in the end, having started from pole with teammate Valtteri Bottas coming home second, not quite so comfortably as he just pipped Charles Leclerc to the line by a few tenths of a second, and the fastest lap of the race went to Sebastian Vettel, who popped in a 1:32.740 on the final lap. That's enough about 2019 though. Let's start looking ahead to this weekend, kicking off with the usual track stats. A lap of the Circuit Paul Ricard runs for 5.842 kilometres, that's 3.630 miles, and consists of 15 corners. 6 of those are left-handers, and surprise, surprise, the other 9 are right-handers. And on Sunday, we should see a total of 53 racing laps. As was the case in 2019, there are 2 DRS zones once again. One runs down the pit straight between turns 15 and turn 1, with the second between turns 7 and 8. And the race lap record is held by Sebastian Vettel thanks to that fastest lap I mentioned earlier. But the fastest ever lap around the circuit is a 1:28.319, and that was set by Lewis Hamilton on his way to pole position last time out. Track limits will inevitably be one of the big talking points this weekend. The circuit is lined, as I'm sure you remember, with asphalt runoff, no grass or gravel this weekend, that's for sure. And drivers will have to follow pre-designated routes back to the track if they go wide at turns 1, 3 or 8. Pretty much one of those return to the track to the left or right hand side of the bollard sort of things. But I'm not going to bang on too much about this one because we are going to hear so much about this over the course of this weekend. When it comes to the tyres, the compounds available for this weekend are the middle of the range, so that's the hard C2, the medium C3 and the soft C4. Last year's winning strategy was, surprise, surprise, a one-stopper with Hamilton going from the mediums to the hards. Tyre degradation is usually low at Paul Ricard though, so it's likely we will be looking at a one-stop race again this year, although turns 10 and 13 are fairly demanding on the tyres. But I'd be surprised if we see anything other than a one-stopper. Obviously, anything like a safety car, that can change things, but I expect a one-stopper. Now, before we move on, there were 2 big blowouts at Baku, one for Lance Stroll and the other for Max Verstappen, and one of Lewis Hamilton's tyres was found to have a deep cut in it after the race. That all led to a lot of criticism being directed at Pirelli, and they vowed to investigate the cause, and their findings have now been revealed. In a statement, Pirelli said that following analysis it found there was no production or quality defect on any of the tyres, nor was there any sign of fatigue or delamination. The company concluded that the failures were due to a break on the inner sidewall, which can be related to the running conditions of the tyre in spite of the prescribed starting parameters having been followed. Those parameters, of course, being the minimum pressures and the maximum blanket temperatures. Red Bull released a statement shortly after confirming that no car failure had been found and stressed that they had, quote, adhered to Pirelli's tyre parameters at all times and will continue to follow their guidance. And Aston Martin later said something very much along the same lines. All of that has resulted in some new tougher tyre checks being implemented at this weekend's French Grand Prix. I am not going to go into great detail about this because the new technical directive is about a dozen pages long. But long story short, it is well known that teams do manipulate tyre pressure checks by heating their tyres up above what they normally run at so they meet the regulations when measured. However, as the tyres cool, the pressures drop again, aiding grip as the contact patch between the tyre and the track is bigger. Basically, lots of benefits there for them, and Lewis Hamilton noted that at the Spanish Grand Prix, Red Bull were removing their tyre blankets from their cars well before they left the garage, potentially suggesting they were cooling the tyres. although it must be stressed the team has denied it was doing anything wrong, and I'm pretty sure Red Bull are not alone in doing that. So, from this weekend, random tests will be carried out on tyre pressures, and race-worn tyres will have seals attached to the valves to ensure that teams cannot tamper with them before they are checked by Pirelli. Infrared technology will also be used to check and make sure teams are not overheating their tyres, and checks will be carried out during qualifying and the race. Any team found in breach of these checks and the rules will be reported to the stewards, as you'd expect. Teams have also been told that if they delay their cars leaving the pits after the blankets have been removed, it will be assumed it is being done to cool the tyres, and if it happens frequently enough, the team will have to explain and justify why. Honestly, that really is the shortest version of all of this, but I'm sure we'll hear plenty more across the weekend. For now, though, let's move on. The weather for the French Grand Prix, at time of recording at least, is set to be warm, dry and sunny with highs on Friday of 28 degrees and 29 degrees on Saturday. On Sunday, the conditions are forecast to be very much the same. However, there is around a 40% chance that we could see a little bit of rain for the start of the race, with that risk reducing as the day goes on, which means there's a 60% chance it will stay dry. As always, that could change by the time we get to the weekend, but that is how it stands right now. Before we get on to driver form and my predictions, let's have a look at some bonus stats courtesy of Lights Out blog. There has been a total of 16 French Grand Prix held at Paul Ricard, with Jackie Stewart taking the first win there back in 1971. 11 different drivers have won at the circuit, with 11 different drivers also taking pole positions. 6 teams have wrapped up a 1-2 finish at Paul Ricard, and they are Tyrrell, Lotus, Renault, Williams, McLaren and Mercedes, but no team has ever been able to do it more than once. Alain Prost has won the most races at the track, taking 4 victories. However, when it comes to French Grand Prix wins, Michael Schumacher holds the record with 8, but all of those came at Magny-Cours. And unless Sergio Perez can take pole position this weekend, he will become the first driver to have qualified for 200 Grand Prix without starting from pole. Can he go one better than he did at Imola? Let's run through some driver form then. Not that there's a huge amount to go off, given that the race didn't return until 2018. But anyway, as usual, I've picked out 5 at random, starting with Kimi Räikkönen, who finished the last race at Paul Ricard in 7th for Alfa Romeo and was on the podium in 2018, picking up 3rd place for Ferrari, meaning he got his hands on one of those awesome gorilla or ape trophies, whatever they were. The Finn's best qualifying result is 6th, and he has competed, unsurprisingly, in more French Grand Prix than any other driver on the grid, racing at Magny-Cours between 2001 and 2008, winning the race in 2007. Lewis Hamilton has won both of the races from pole position since F1 returned to France in 2018, taking the win last time out by more than 18 seconds from his teammate. Incredibly, though, the only lap he hasn't led was lap 33 of the 2018 event. He's led every other lap at that track. He did race at Magny-Cours twice, finishing 3rd in 2007 and 10th in 2008. Lance Stroll has not scored a single point yet at Paul Ricard and failed to finish the race in 2018 thanks to a puncture. However, he did make it to the flag a year later, taking 13th place just behind his teammate. The Canadian has also yet to out-qualify a teammate at the circuit, with his best qualifying result being 18th place. Carlos Sainz, however, has scored in both of his appearances in France, taking 8th in 2018 and 6th a year later. He did also manage to beat his teammate at each of those races. The Spaniard has managed to qualify inside the top 7 both years, with 6th being his best result on a Saturday. And Daniel Ricciardo has finished both French Grand Prix he has taken part in, but was only classified 11th when F1 last visited Paul Ricard thanks to those penalties. However, he finished 4th the previous year for Red Bull and has made it into Q3 on both of his appearances, out-qualifying teammate Nico Hülkenberg in 2019, but lost out to Max Verstappen in 18. Here we go then, time for some predictions. Just the one lot for you this time around, and I might do the random ones again ahead of one of the Austria races. For now though, I'll do them based on current form as well as recent form at the track. Now, Paul Ricard in theory should be a track that suits Mercedes much more than Baku and Monaco did, but I fully expect, and I don't think it'll come as a surprise to many that I'm going to say this, that it will be just as close between them here as it has been at every race so far this season. I don't know why I said here, I'm in Lincoln and they're in France, but you know what I mean. Ferrari have taken the last 2 pole positions in 2021 though, to be fair, but I'd be very surprised if they continue that this weekend. Even they've come out and said those poles do not reflect the car's true performance. Then again, Leclerc said something similar before Baku and still stuck it on pole, so you never know, I suppose. But Hamilton has taken the last 2 poles in France and has 2 already in 2021, so I'm going to go with him for pole again. Like I say, France is very much a Mercedes track, and given how processional it can get, I'm going to go with him for the win as well, with Max Verstappen 2nd, and building on his win in Baku, I'm putting Sergio Perez 3rd. But a couple of boldish shouts for those who like that kind of thing. I think the gap between the top two will be less than 2.5 seconds over the line on Sunday. And I'm going to say that Lando Norris will finish ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Don't know why, but it's something else to give me grief for on Sunday when it's inevitably completely wrong. One other thing worth noting, though, is that if Perez does do what he did in Baku prior to all the chaos and finds himself in the mix with Hamilton and Verstappen, he could be used by Red Bull to trigger some strategy play, and that could easily result in Verstappen snatching the win. Then again, flip that over, if Bottas is up there too, he could do the same for Mercedes. It really is too close to call at the front, and that is fantastic. What a season we're having. As for the rest, I fancy McLaren to be the third fastest this weekend, with Ferrari not too far behind. My one to watch this weekend is Fernando Alonso. He's already said that the updates planned for Alpine at Paul Ricard will mean he will be able to be more competitive, and that it will be the start of, quote, a new championship for him. And keep an eye on the French drivers as well, Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. They'll be wanting to impress the home crowd. And Ocon, of course, is going to want to celebrate that new contract with Alpine for 3 years. Before I go, let's have a quick look at the session times for this weekend. FP1 will start at 10:30 AM BST and will run for 1 hour as per, with FP2 starting from 2 PM. On Saturday morning, FP3 goes green at 11 AM with qualifying underway from 2 PM. And on Sunday, it is lights out on the hour at 2 PM. That is it for this week's preview then, but you can let me know your thoughts and your predictions ahead of the weekend in the comments section down below. As always, who do you think will take pole position on Saturday? And who are you backing for the win on Sunday? What is your top 3? Now, I will be back soon with another video, and we will be live shortly after the race on Sunday for some immediate race reaction. In the meantime, though, if you did enjoy this video, then please do leave a like, as it really does help out the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future streams or videos. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean, this has been the F1 Word, and until next time, goodbye.